I'm Stacy Berger. I'm the President and CEO at the Housing and Community Development Network. We are thrilled to have all of you with us today, and are trying something a little different here. So if we have any technical difficulties, you are all on mute during the presentation, and we'll take questions at the end. But if you have questions, there's a little way for you to type your question into the box or raise your hand virtually to be unmuted to ask your question directly. So we're going to go through the presentation and the PowerPoint, and then we'll be happy to take questions from folks. We're just about a minute ahead of schedule, so we're going to let other folks hop on and start in 1 minute. But I do want to thank everyone for being with us today. This is my 11th release, I think, of the Out of Reach report. And every year we do it somewhere different. This year we're doing it on the internet. So for those of you who don't know, the network is the statewide association of nonprofit community development organizations. We represent about 250 CDCs and other nonprofits, as well as private sector supporters and investors and housing advocates around the state who want to make sure New Jersey is an affordable place that everyone can call home. This report is sponsored and produced by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. The network is the state partner of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, and we are honored and proud to release the report, although we wish it showed different results. New Jersey continues to rank at the very top of the least affordable places people can afford to rent a home and afford to call home. And so we're going to share the data with you in a minute, and then let you hear from some folks who have a stake in making New Jersey a place that everyone can thrive. So I'm going to turn it over to talk about the data to Arnold Cohen, our Senior Policy Coordinator and also a member of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition Board, to go through the information that we're going to share with you now. Arnold, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. So unfortunately, the takeaway from the National Low-Income Housing Out of Reach report is that the cost of rental homes in New Jersey is continuing to go up. Last year, what's called the hourly housing wage. The housing wage is what a person would need to earn each hour in order to afford the fair market rent for a two-bedroom apartment. The fair market rent is a HUD calculation that is really looking at a modest two-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy, just a decent roof over your head. And the cost of that is going up in New Jersey, 5% increase over last year. And New Jersey continues to be one of the most expensive states in the nation. This year we rank 5th behind Hawaii, California, New York, and Maryland. And you'll see the contrast between the national housing wage of $20 an hour and what it is in New Jersey at over $25 an hour. And this is a map that just shows the wages needed to afford housing across the country. Next slide. Okay, so how does that translate for somebody, a worker in New Jersey? Well, at minimum wage, which in New Jersey is better than most of the country, you would have to work 127 hours or 3.2 full-time jobs a week to afford that modest two-bedroom apartment. Even that average wage of almost $17 an hour, you would be having to work 1.6 jobs to afford that modest two-bedroom apartment, which means that many people in our state are ill-housed, doubled up, or living in inadequate housing. Next slide. Okay. So that translates that many of the people that we depend upon, social service workers, the people that teach our children, the people that wait on us when we go into stores, are unable to afford a decent place to be living in our state. That's unfair, and that needs to be changed. Okay. So this translates differently as we look at different areas of New Jersey. So we have some areas like Cutterton, Middlesex, Somerset, which are the most expensive in our state, where that modest two-bedroom apartment costs over $1,500 a month to rent, if you can find that. And then for some parts of our state where a two-bedroom apartment is cheaper, people aren't earning the wages to be able to afford that. So Cape May, Sussex, Gloucester are the least affordable counties to people who live there because the average worker earns less than $10 an hour in those counties. So what you need, what you're earning depends upon how affordable a home is for you in our state. Slide. Okay. So if we look at the state as a whole, about 35% of New Jerseyans are renters, and that percentage is going up each year. So we're becoming, as housing is becoming more expensive for renters, we have more people renting in our state. How many people rent depends upon where you are in the state. If you're in Hudson County, 2/3 of the population are renters. In Essex County, over half population renters. Other parts of the state, it goes from a third, and some places there's very few rental opportunities. So your ability to be able to rent depends upon where you live in the state, but wherever you live in the state, it is very expensive.
So there's clearly a need for additional funding to make those kinds of homes available to a wide array of folks. Here at the network, we are beyond excited to have the first infusion of funding from the National Housing Trust Fund, which is a federal policy, federal program that has been on the books since 2008 and has finally, after quite a few years, received funding. That will require states to disperse, in this case, $3 million to primarily nonprofit organizations to build extremely low-income rental housing. What we really have here in New Jersey, and I think we can see it across the country from the previous slide, is a just utter lack of available apartments. In addition to high rents and low wages, we don't have enough homes people can move into. And so we really need to create and rehab homes that are available for folks to rent. We also need to make sure that people who are currently renting, who are not able to afford a home on their own, have enough assistance from the state. Right here in New Jersey, we are still looking at an emergency assistance crisis on two fronts. Our budget underfunds or cuts shelter assistance by $36 million, and it also threatens 3,000 vouchers for folks who are currently receiving temporary rental assistance. So we need our legislators to fill those holes in the budget and make sure that people, especially those folks who are currently getting rental assistance, continue to get rental assistance because the market is so tight and so expensive. And we're thrilled that the state has expanded their rental choice voucher program. They're working through a waiting list. They've added 500 vouchers. That's great news. It's just not enough. We know that the federal government needs to step up and do more to invest in rental assistance, and more Section 8 vouchers here in New Jersey would go a long way to helping alleviate the rental crisis. There are very few places, if any, where you can actually even get on a waiting list. It's not just to get on a list, it's to get on a waiting list. So when a waiting list is closed, that sends a whole different message to lower income families. It basically says you can't live here. And that's not the kind of state we want to be in, and it's not a good place for employers to hire people, and it's not a good place for people to be able to raise their families. So we need to make sure that we have affordable, available rental apartments. And we're really excited to be working with Senator Lesniak and other folks in the legislature on a proposal that may take a little while to get through, but we are looking forward to seeing it happen, that would develop, would invest $600 million into mixed income housing developments in primarily urban communities that would be rental homes that would provide that influx of apartments to the market to drive down the cost of other apartments, because what we really have is a market problem. So we are working on that legislation, and I think more than 50 organizations have already signed on to support that bill.
Governing bodies, so many mayors and councils, municipalities interested and inspired to build affordable housing is at the precise time that some of the revenue streams of support for acquisition or construction financing have fundamentally dried up. So trying to cobble together the different capital stacks in order to try to accomplish or increase the supply of homes that people can afford is just incredibly difficult. So because of then acting Governor Cody's creation of the Special Needs Housing Trust Fund, which was about $200 million, that stimulated a tremendous amount of development of supportive housing, housing that we created. The idea of creating some kind of permanent housing fund to match the supply of construction financing to the demand that exists out there at the local level would be ideal.
And so we've heard from one developer in northern New Jersey about how they would use resources. I want to ask Craig Sawyer, who's also on with us from EFR Advisors and also a member of the Network's board, to talk a little bit about how he would be able to help community development organizations use those resources and make New Jersey more affordable. So this is the part where we hope the technology works.
Yeah, exactly. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Craig.
Great, thank you. Yes, the housing development community is very committed towards creating quality, affordable housing for both low and moderate income residents in New Jersey. But as you know, somehow our hands are still somewhat tied. The cost to build in New Jersey continue to increase, and the cost to build an affordable home compared to a market rate home is practically the same. So without the public subsidy, the economics just does not work. So without the continued support from both the federal level and the state level through the trust fund, tax credits, and other rental assistance, it's really difficult for housing developers to meet that market demand of building or rehabbing quality, affordable housing for the residents of New Jersey. So it's essential that we have that support in order to continue to address the strong demand for affordable housing in New Jersey.
Great. Thanks, Craig.
not just the downtown section of whether it's Newark or Jersey City or
So all of the data sets that we talked about before will be available on our website, but we also want to open it up for questions. The list of counties and what the FMR rents by county, the annual income needed, full-time jobs, and the number of households that are renters or percentages will be available on our website along with a fact sheet and the actual PowerPoint that you all just watched. I just want to say that our communications specialist put together and did a phenomenal job making that happen, as well as a comparison of all of the least affordable states. All of that will be on the website. But if you have a question, you want to type your question in your box or raise your hand, it will unmute you and take questions from folks if there are some. Give me a second to figure out how to do that. It would take me a little while. The highest FMR. There's in Hunterdon County, and that's $1,578, and annual income needed to afford that two-bedroom apartment at a fair market rate is $63,000. The lowest is Cape May County. That two-bedroom fair market apartment is $1,000, not only, it's $1,061, and you need a $42,000 a year income to afford that. We've been asked to update you all specifically on the status of the emergency housing assistance and voucher program. Oh, sorry, I'm getting multiple different directions here. And the programs that the governor vetoed. For those of you who don't know, the governor vetoed a proposal that was adopted nearly unanimously by the legislature to make a temporary program permanent. Advocates are still working with the legislature to try to address that issue. There has been no change to my knowledge. I know the legislative staff and legislators themselves are trying to get some resolution of that. One proposal that we've heard would be to move to restore the county's ability to make the determination about who would be homeless, and that would certainly be a huge step in the right direction and something we would strongly support. As far as the shelter assistance cut in the budget at $36 million and change, that's still in the governor's proposed budget, and we know that there's a big budget deficit, and we believe that there's no real good reason to cut shelter assistance in a time of economic crisis, which we continue to face here in New Jersey. So we're working with our members to get calls into the governor's office and legislative leadership to urge them to find that $36 million from not the most vulnerable residents in New Jersey. Fair market, FMR, I'm sorry if I was using a term before that people didn't know what that was. FMR is fair market rent. It's a set of data points that HUD establishes for what a reasonable cost in that area. And Arnold, if you have more on how they get to fair market rent, I would certainly turn that over to you because I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, HUD actually does.
Expectation of what a reasonable cost is for that apartment based on the market in that area.
And that's a good way to describe it, Stacey.
Dial-in? I mean, raise your hand, I guess. That's how that works. Great. We can certainly make any of the folks who are on the PowerPoint available to members of the press, and our members, in addition, in the communities that you might cover, are ready to talk to you about what individual folks they've worked with, or the services that they provide, or the housing market that they've seen. So, yes, to answer that question, we got one more question. The entire PowerPoint will be available on our website along with the press release, a fact sheet, and a whole set of data that you can certainly use from and quote. So we really appreciate everybody being with us this afternoon. We look forward to hearing from you if you have additional questions.